listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
Ground pronouncement here. I think I've been living my life wrong. There's been,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What made you decide that?
Okay, so here's what happened. I was shopping a little while ago, probably about a year ago. And I came across some cashmere sweatpants. They were luxurious and beautiful. And I thought, I'm not going to spend $200 on a pair of cashmere sweatpants. I'm just around the house. And then I did buy another pair of sweatpants that are good. But then I thought, honestly, the cashmere sweatpants are the ones I probably would have worn every day, right? I would have come home. I would have had a hard day and, taken off my outdoor pants and all that.
Yeah.
And then I would have had these cashmere sweatpants as a treat.
I mean, how did you look at the tag? Like, how washable are those sweatpants?
Oh, see, that's a good point. I doubt at all. It's very,
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you need to wash pants that you live in pretty regularly.
This is very true. So I did kind of splurge on these ones I have now. And I do like them. But yeah, you're right. I can just throw them in the washer and the dryer and they're just fine. But still, I guess for the people who buy the cashmere, that's not a question. It's just like...
Yeah, I guess they
can
clean their clothes
They can
once a
just
week.
own like 6 pairs of cashmere and then they just they can rotate in and out.
Is it true that the Pope only wears his outfit once?
I am not up on.
How would we know?
Yeah, sorry, dude. Like I don't. It's like so. I mean, there's like a lot we're bringing to these opening minutes of this podcast. You have been living your life wrong, apparently, your whole life, and we are not a Pope focused podcast. Like we just don't have that information.
But back to the sweatpants, though. I don't understand. Like, what is? I don't know. Like, I think they're impractical. So I don't know that I would say that you have been living your life wrong.
No, but don't you think that like the sort of there should be more spent on the things at home, right, than the outdoor stuff? Like if you invited me to a big wedding, I would spend quite a bit of money on a new dress that I'll wear once, twice, maybe, like pushing it at 3 times, right?
Yeah, but you would cheap out on your like pajamas or something.
Right?
I see.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I don't need to spend that much money on my leisure wear. But you do, because they become your best friends. Like...
Yeah, I mean, I think like the important part isn't necessarily like the amount that you would spend on the leisure wear. It's just like finding the leisure wear that can become your best friend. For instance, right now I'm recording in my pajamas that I'm obsessed with, that I love so much, that are 100% cotton poplin, and they're the most comfortable, wonderful things. They're like the dream pajamas that I was looking for my whole life. Matching pair, like top and bottom, stripes, blue and white, baggy, and they're just Old Navy.
But
100% cotton.
Yeah, okay.
That was like the real key, and I love them so much that I bought 2 pairs, and I have worn them most of the rest of this year. And I got a shorts pair for summer. Oh,
okay.
And I sleep naked. This is just for at home to lounge around in, and often my work outfit for the day.
I'm not a naked sleeper. I'm a t-shirt sleeper, and I have.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I have. When and I think I've heard this joke before. Like suddenly the t-shirt becomes, well, this is the sleeping shirt now. Like it makes that transition, right? It goes, I could wear this outside, and so years ago, went to see Morrissey, and I know that's a very controversial subject. I bought a t-shirt, and that's why I only wear it to sleep in, because I'm not wearing it out to advertise that. But it's weird because it has a man in bed, and I think the name of the album was something like, I Think I'll Stay in Bed. So essentially, I'm sleeping in a t-shirt with a man in a bed.
Wow.
But Lisa,
risque.
Again, for the 3rd time, back to the cashmere pants.
Yeah.
I want to just dispel your idea that cashmere jogging pants would make you happy and feel like you're living your best life. They might for maybe like a few hours that you're wearing it. But in my experience with cashmere, it's not meant to be used as a pant material because it won't stretch back. Like if you're sitting cross-legged or whatever, lounging, it's not the same material as like jogging material, suit material that like is meant to be retain its shape no matter what position you're in. It'll just eventually get baggy around the knees, around the butt, whatever. And you would have been sad that you spent so much money on pants that made you happy for like a few hours and then that's it. I agree
with you. I think it's probably the mystique of it, just that idea that I have my sweatpants are cashmere. It sounds so over the top. That's, I think, what was really attracting me as well.
But also, I think those like cashmere pants were maybe, even though they're jogging pants, were probably made to be worn outside, not inside.
Oh.
So that people know you're wearing cashmere pants.
Yeah.
Fair. I would like people to know because I mean, it just even cashmere pants seems ridiculous because it's a sweater, right? Like or a dress. But cashmere pants.
I've been gifted cashmere socks before. They're very warm.
Oh.
My feet get real sweaty. I don't like it.
I remember making that one mistake years ago. A fair. I don't know. I was at like university, and I don't know if you ever remember. They would have those events where all the different people would come to sell like crafts and different things.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, this Peruvian wool sweater is so beautiful. Yeah, and then I wore it.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to die. I was so hot.
Yeah.
I was in tears. Like there was nothing I could do.
Why didn't you just take it off?
Nothing underneath.
Oh,
what?
That's a classic mistake.
Yeah, I went to.
I get it.
And so the sweat and the itch, it was.
That must.
Why would you wear that kind of sweater
funny.
with nothing underneath? That would be so itchy.
I wasn't thinking. I was thinking. I look so cool. Look at this sweater, Peruvian. You know, and the whole day it was just the most miserable. Like I just had to try to keep going to the bathroom and kind of opening it. And
Oh, jeez.
give myself a bit of air and then, head back. But I didn't even keep it. I don't know what happened to it, but I don't think it was cheap,
No, Peruvian wool is not cheap. Have you ever made the mistake of wearing fishnets like under your fishnets that like actually go around your foot as well? Isn't it a nightmare
to keep hiking them up and not ripping it?
No, just walking on the fishnet itself, like
in the shoe.
Just like it's like sorry, I was just trying to think of like an object that I had worn that caused me like similar. Like I thought I was gonna like just weep the entire time. And I was like, when I realized later that other people like cut the foots out of the fishnets and like cut the bottom or like the sole out of the fishnet and like just tuck it into it. Like I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? How did I not know that there were hacks for this?
It's just that I don't do it anymore, but over my lifetime, that moment where you're so excited because you got new shoes and you're going to wear them out that night. And
yeah.
It's just,
well, you did it a couple of years ago because you talked about it on the podcast.
I did. The new Doc Martens sandals. Yeah, I was bleeding.
You were bleeding.
Yeah. I'm not going to ever do that again, but I don't know. It could happen. It's just.
But I find as I'm getting older, I just have a more ability to wear something, decide that I hate it, and then get rid of it, like donate it or return it or whatever. Like when I was younger, I'd be like, I'm not going to be defeated by this garment. I'm going to like keep working it.
I'm not going to be defeated by this garment.
I'm going to find a way to make it work because I spent money on it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, as I'm getting older, I'm just like, forget it.
There really should be a
Real
word,
quick.
and it's probably German because they always are, for that weird psychological thing that happens that when you're in the store and you're looking at yourself, you're like, this is good. And then you take it home and you're like, what was I thinking? This looks...
Trick mirrors, man. I have absolutely... Yeah. Well, it's like when you're... It's like when you take a selfie with a phone and then somebody else takes a picture with like the same photo and it's the same you, but they have a different sort of slightly different aspect ratio. And you're just like, when I was trying to get my new photos done for my passport, I hated the first one. So I went to another studio and I took my own photo and then the person there took their photo. And like those were better, and so I like lived with it. But when I got out to the car, I was like, Carlos, what has happened? Like what sorcery have you helped put into an iPhone to make it that my like selfie looks this way, but this passport photo looks this way? And he was just like, I mean, it's just cameras have different angles and different like lenses, and that's just how cameras work. And I was so outraged that that's just how cameras work was like the explanation, but it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Wow. So, okay. Nobody else looking at those photos could tell the difference. I guarantee you. It's just yourself. And B, what a perfect segue.
What a perfect segue
that we're talking about today.
1,000%. 1,000%. Perfect segue. Oh my God, I cannot wait to talk about this movie with you guys. We are probably going to spoil the crap out of it, so, like, we'll get to that. But anyway, I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This, and we are talking about The Substance.
Wow.
Oh, huge sigh. Yeah. Oh, man.
So, I did not think I would watch this film when I first heard about it.
Why?
Because I just don't really typically do horror very much. Like, I've done it for the podcast, but it's not something I sort of gravitate towards. And especially like body horror, not something I typically gravitate towards either. And so it was not on my list of things I thought I would watch in 2024. But then, Lisa, when you were talking about it a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? This does sound like something like we should probably like, okay,
well, it's
fine.
It's been so buzzed about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And so, oh my God, I'm so glad that we did.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an experience. I mean, I knew a few things. Like, really just, I think the two things I knew was, one, it was about some kind of aging thing. I knew that. And two, was very gross. Those are the only two things that I knew.
Yeah. I mean, I've just heard people shudder and groan about it while they're talking about watching it. And that's pretty much all I knew before going in. It's just like people just trying to find a way to describe how they were feeling after watching this disgusting horror film.
Yeah. So I think that we are going to spoil stuff. And so if you have not watched The Substance, I would personally recommend stopping the podcast right now. Go and watch it. You can watch it for free on Mubi with a 7-day free trial, or you can go and see it in the theater, or you can buy it on iTunes or rent it or whatever you want. But like, go and watch it and then come back to us. Cause like, I don't think there's a way that we can really talk about this deeply and meaningfully without sort of giving away a lot of the stuff about it.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, I think also you should just be going to see this. If you're listening to this podcast, you have an interest already in what there is in that movie.
It might make an interesting companion piece with an episode that we did a number of years ago with our guest, Jackie Wong, talking about Demi Moore as the first like naked pregnant person on the cover of Vanity Fair. Oh,
yeah.
Sort of an interesting contrast in conversation there, but like also talking about sort of body horror, aging, women's bodies, and all kinds of like things around sort of the male gaze and whatnot. Good grief. So Lisa, I know I texted us, like the three of us this weekend, and I fessed up pretty quickly how much I loved it. Yeah. Lisa, you had texted back, AG, oddly silent.
Well, because I didn't watch it until I hadn't watched it at that point. I only watched it yesterday. And I'm a little sad for my eyes for having
Ooh.
had to see all those things.
Wow.
I feel like I'm a little less innocent and happy than I was 24 hours ago.
Wow. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I think about this film because I am still kind of trying to wipe the images from my mind. And I understand that it's a cool film. Like, it's a cool looking film, and the filmmaker, like, the dialogue is very interesting because there's hardly any of it.
Yeah.
It's like a show, don't talk kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of interesting different things going on in this movie. But I just wasn't sure if it made me think about, like this, what women's, like, cause, the subject of aging, and like we talk about it all the time. And I don't think like it made me think about it in a new way or a different way, or told me anything that I didn't know. It just kind of grossed me out for almost 3 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Did you find it hilarious?
Hilarious? No.
Okay. So I will say in our house where we were watching it with previous guests of the podcast, Snara Geisler and Dawn English. So it was Carlos, me, Snara, and Dawn watching it together. And I will say, like, we were like clapping, we were laughing, we basically almost all stood up at one point to like cheer. Like, I'm glad we didn't go to the theater because we would have been extremely raucous and people would have been really mad at us. It's also obviously extremely distressing and sad and yeah, there's like lots of gross stuff. But I did not think that I would find the movie as like satirically, punishingly, grossly funny as I did. And I really did. It brought a lot of things home for me personally.
Wow. I think I was more moved, like almost to tears a couple of times, which was weird to say or moved to tears in a horror movie. But there was a message throughout the whole film that kept coming through the panicked phone calls that were being made to the company. And one of the things that they kept saying over and over and over again was, "You are the one.
Yeah.
This is you. This isn't another entity. This is you." And then when we proceeded to watch how cruel that person was to themselves, I just thought that was, it's not like I didn't know that women do that to themselves, but just to see because the movie is so extreme, everything's so big and gross and horrible, right? But just to see that particular message so vividly portrayed, I felt so sad, so overwhelmingly sad.
Yeah.
Wow, those are fascinating reactions to watching the same movie.
Yeah,
I think so too. But I think all three of them make sense actually in a lot of ways, and I think that they're all in conversation with each other too. Like, I think that this movie isn't necessarily gonna tell us anything new to speak to your point, AG, but it is putting it up on a screen that potentially is huge and flashing those alarm bells at us, and it makes everyone, like, all of the men in the film are kind of like gross or nothing, or and it's so heightened, it's so ridiculous, it's so over the top, and yet at the same time, like, I for sure have met a Dennis Quaid like that. And
well, his character is kind of unsubtly named Harvey.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, I don't think this movie is like necessarily like, to the people who have thought about this, like in a sort of critical, have thought about like aging, beauty standards, like the white supremacy of beauty standards, Hollywood, and like all of these different things. I don't think there's necessarily going to be like new revelations for you, but like potentially sort of like the potential for sort of like a thrilling catharsis to see it so telegraphed so vividly and so explicitly and eyeball-searingly, in this way.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't want my eyeballs seared quite so badly. And this is just my own thing, but I find maybe it's because I grew up in the 80s, but like the 80s apartments and like that whole apartment was really upsetting to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like the whole 80s vibe of it. I didn't like.
I loved it because it was so 80s. Like she's just stuck in this like mausoleum of her own youth. Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's all ridiculous. Like,
yeah, it made me feel,
It was so depressing, though. It had no personality. The colors, the
bleak as hell.
So
for sure.
Terrible. Yeah, but I wasn't offended. But interesting.
I wasn't offended. I was just upset.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So let's work backwards here. Let's do some background, some synopsis, and then dig into it even more. Lisa, do you want to read the background?
Sure. The Substance is a 2024 satirical body horror film written, directed, and co-edited and co-produced by Coralie Farge, an international co-production between France, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The film had its world premiere on the 19th of May, 2024 at the 77th Cannes Film Festival main competition, where Farge won Best Screenplay. The film has been a critical and commercial success, earning over $51 million on a $17.5 million budget, and that's from Wikipedia.
Earn that coin, Coralie.
Yeah.
I will read the synopsis. As an actress, Elizabeth Sparkle, Demi Moore, once dazzled audiences, but like her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, she has seen better days. She loses her job leading a fitness class for a daytime TV show when a grotesque executive named Harvey, Dennis Quaid, cancels her program to make room for anyone young. Heartbroken over being unceremoniously dumped for her age, Elizabeth learns of a mysterious product called The Substance, which creates a younger version of herself that will allow her to continue working in the youth-obsessed entertainment business. However, like the monsters in Gremlins, The Substance comes with a very specific set of rules. She's only to activate her younger self once, and she and her perky alter ego are to switch off every 7 days without exception. They are allegedly supposed to share the same consciousness, but as Elizabeth and her younger self, Sue, Margaret Qualley, continue with The Substance, they learn about the unspoken side effects of pursuing youth at any cost. And that is by Monica Castillo from RogerEbert.com.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be sharing the same consciousness, but when I was watching the film, it didn't make sense to me that Elizabeth would continue wanting to switch over to her younger self. Because did she have memories of what was happening as her younger self? Like, did she experience that? Was she having happiness doing that? Like, why would she willingly switch to it if it just made her older and more decrepit more rapidly?
Well, she didn't. Yeah. I mean, I think at that point...
What's her motivation for doing that?
I think at that point it's just addiction. I don't think there's a motivation so much as this is just the cycle she's on. She knows she can look better.
But is she enjoying, is she experiencing looking better?
Well, the message keeps saying there is only one.
There's only one. It's
one.
like she's...
So while she's sleeping, she's experiencing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's my understanding. But in the same way that, like, computers develop personalities, each of them is sort of starting to develop their own personality on top of the shared personality. Because, like, Sue is treated so well for being so beautiful and so vibrant and vivacious and whatnot. And whereas Elizabeth is continuing to understand that, like, the less desirable, quote unquote, she apparently is to society and its rigid beauty standards, the more miserable her life will be. If she does not have anything sort of on the interior that she's, like, clinging to.
Which she does not.
Yeah. Like, I did not have any sense that I was surprised when I was reading your outline that people thought that, like, they didn't share those experiences. Because, like, I took it as, like, that's why she couldn't, like, that's why she, like, hated going back into her body, because she was so, like, Elizabeth's, like, sort of decrepit body, because she was so addicted to that, like, youth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think you see Sue and her treat each other increasingly poorly.
Yeah.
And you kind of...
But I think that's the self-hatred part, right? Like Sue as Elizabeth is upset that she still has this sort of like old person shadow that's like embodied that she has to be every 7 days. And like Elizabeth is so upset that like she is sort of letting the culture, that she's so attached to that youth that she's trying to recapture it, that she is like hurting herself. Like that's like that addiction piece is such a big part of this, but so is that self-hatred piece. And so I found it very fascinating to sort of watch how, and I mean, depressing as hell, obviously too. And especially like thinking about sort of like both of their fears of fatness, and like Elizabeth deciding she's going to binge eat to punish her, like to self-soothe and punish, and like all of these like very complicated things around what they think of as the real body horror, which would be being a fat person, when like they ultimately grow into this like Sue Elizabeth monster at the end. You know, it's there's some real tough stuff in this that I think is like very complex and super fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I think I'm just guessing that we were all very alarmed with the final stage performance and then just all that blood.
I loved it.
I did too. And it was such an interesting thing because I was sitting watching going, man, this is like the ultimate, like, society, you also don't like when women menstruate either. So here you go.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, it's like there's nothing you like about us at all. There's nothing you like about us, really.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Did you guys find it depressing to witness how neither of them have friends?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sue had that very depressing boyfriend.
Yeah, it's bad news.
Like who ran away when he thought she was sick in the bathroom. And I mean, the thing about this movie too, that what I think most enjoyed, I don't imagine myself watching it again, but maybe, I don't know, just because every single moment has a purpose. You know, that when that man stops her from school, and you're just thinking, oh, what's that got to do with anything, right? And the fact that he was so caring when she didn't show up. Are you okay? Is there anything wrong? What can I do to help, right? And then, dude, as soon as he hears her in that other room getting sick, he ran out the door.
Without pants.
Without pants. He didn't try to see if she was okay. He didn't make any effort at all. He was out of there. And I just thought everything she was meticulously building this story, and what this costs you in the end.
But also just like the bleakness of like when she does see that guy and he's like taking his shot, because even though she is an astoundingly beautiful woman and he's like a normal guy, the culture and pop culture has shown us that like that's a perfectly reasonable dynamic to expect to see all the time. Mm-hmm. Basic dudes with astoundingly beautiful women.
Yeah.
So that when he drops his phone number in a mud puddle, he doesn't even write it on a different part of the paper. He hands her the wet paper, and then she keeps it because she thinks that there's so much about this movie that is so perfect with the details.
Yes,
like
that's what it is.
Just, oh my God, those disgusting, like watching that man eat that shrimp, I would honestly rather watch.
Yeah, that was so disgusting.
That's the grossest
first time I
horror.
could not look at the screen from that point onwards.
Yeah. Like I would rather watch people be sprayed in thousands of quarts of blood than watch Harvey eat shrimp ever again.
Yeah, I'm so curious. Like I haven't listened to it, but somebody I know said they listened to this hour podcast with Demi Moore talking about being in the film, and you know what the experience was like, and you know, and I think for me watching it, it was like the ultimate. It wasn't like it was a casting joke or anything, because she was perfect and she was really, really good. But there were a lot of like, oh boy, you know, this really does make sense, right? But I am quite curious as to Dennis Quaid. Did he see himself as representing, like, what did he see? Like, what was he thinking?
It's the smartest choice he's made recently. Like some of the things that he has said, he's been really on his brother Randy Quaid's train of thought. So he is lucky that they hired him to be in this film, frankly. I'm really mad at Dennis Quaid.
But we should talk about Demi Moore's career a little bit in case anybody isn't familiar with her and why she was such a good choice for this film. But basically, she started in 1981 as a soap opera actress. And I don't know, did you know that? Did you ever watch her on General Hospital?
Well, I was 2, but I did know that she was on it, and I've seen stills from her from the production. So yeah, I know when people have come out of soaps, because that's just like a fun little thing that I have always held close to me.
But I did read her memoir when it came out. So that, I mean, I knew it because of that, but I thought you meant, did I know it because I was watching? No, I read her memoir and really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Huh. But yeah, and of course she's a member of the Brat Pack through the 80s. We've watched quite a few of those movies, St. Elmo's Fire. And then in the 90s, she became one of the most highest paid actresses in Hollywood. A Few Good Men, Indecent Proposal, Disclosure.
Ghost.
And then Striptease in 1996, which she got $12.5 million to star in, which was the highest paid actress in film history at that time. And then, G.I. Jane, Charlie's Angels.
But she was so well cast in Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle.
Yeah.
Like, she was perfect in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, she's just had a long and very successful career. And I guess, given everything everybody knows about her history and her role in pop culture over the last 20 or 30 years, it's just I don't know. It just made her this perfect person to play this role.
It almost, when I first heard about the movie, but hadn't, seen it at all, it almost sounded a bit too on the nose. Really. Oh boy, did she orchestrate this? Is this something that she got together? And, now I see absolutely not. But when I first heard about it.
Well, the other thing to consider, I think, is that our idea of Demi Moore is that and in this film, Elizabeth Sparkles, if you had to guess Elizabeth Sparkles' age, would you say early 50s? Mm-hmm. Demi Moore is 62.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think that actually is also another interesting sort of nesting doll in this, is that she's still not playing necessarily 62 at any point in this film. Mm-hmm. But I find it super fascinating looking at her career.
She kind of seems like she skips past 62.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. She goes real fast into 104. Yeah, no, but it just especially in the context of this career and looking at all these films sort of stacked on top of each other, I was pretty I haven't revisited a lot of this stuff, so I was pretty young when I saw a lot of these movies. It's been a long time since I saw Indecent Proposal or Disclosure or Striptease or G.I. Jane. Mm-hmm. So my memories of sort of the place that she held in our movie culture were a little bit, it starts with St. Elmo's Fire, ends with Ghost, and then I picked back up with Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. Yeah. And then I haven't seen her in a ton of stuff since then. But I have watched as she has sort of really had so much written about, and also she's participated in a lot of talk about her looks and her eating disorders and procedures she's had done and what she hasn't. And then I've seen that sort of mirrored in her children, who have also had a lot of public discourse around cosmetic procedures and looking a cross between Demi and Bruce and all of these different things. So I feel this movie is born for her. I would not be hugely surprised if I found out that Coralie wrote it with someone like Demi Moore in mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. No, she seemed, like I said, it seemed on the nose, but then having seen it, I didn't really expect where it was going to go. I have to say, there was no way to know that that's where we were going.
Yeah, it did surprise me in ways that I was not prepared for. I found that I could watch it, but I had to cover my ears.
The sound was pretty good.
I couldn't handle the sound effects of all the gross stuff happening, but I could watch it.
Oh, okay. Was there one particular thing that was more gross than anything else for you? I'm just curious because...
Yep.
Oh.
For me, it's the shoving the needle into the necrotizing back wound.
Same. Exactly. I thought this.
Couldn't.
That one was really hard.
AG, how about you?
All those, there's like 1,000 moments that are all the same to me. So can't really pull one out.
And it's funny because it started small and worked up because I think when she was sewing up the back of Demi Moore with that needle and thread, which also I didn't think that she would, I better close up her back. I don't know how she knew that. But anyway, she did. Was there instructions there or something? Or
the level of medical expertise that you are expected to have as a user of the substance is incredible. Like you are basically supposed to be like a level 1, at least like LPN.
Yeah.
To be able to administer to yourself and stitch up the back of the person that you were just born out of. Wow.
Yeah. No, there were so many. But what I was going to say is it just escalated, right? Like we started with that. I was like, oh, and then the whole taking that goo out of the back after it got, and the smell. Like,
Yeah, like if you are someone who gets queasy,
do not.
This is not the movie for you.
No.
Yeah.
But to be fair to this movie too, like I mean,
or if you don't like needles.
Yeah. If you don't like needles, no, you're screwed.
Like the number of different women I've seen, be on social media talking about their procedure and wanting to be honest about it and show their face and all of like it's horrible. Like it's horrible, right? And painful. These people are like in tears. We used to have that terrible show, The Swan. Like that horrible.
I never watched it, but I know about it. Yeah.
What was it? What was The Swan?
Oh gosh, it was like they would take a woman they considered to be frumpy, and they would bring her on in front of a team of people that were going to fix her, like in
Ugly Duckling to Swan.
Oh, I see.
But it wasn't like, oh, what not to wear, and like, have you tried, maybe dyeing your hair and getting some new shoes. No, this was full on plastic surgery. And not plastic surgery like just a kind of nip and tuck, like a complete change of their faces. Like they don't even resemble who they look like before.
I don't know if my algorithm knew that I watched The Substance. Oh, it probably did. But anyways, the algorithm decided to start feeding me some fun pieces of content. And like one piece that came up for me today was a man who I think maybe he was like a tech bro or something. He decided he wanted to be like baby faced again because he is older. And so he just had a ton of different pockets of fat injected into his face. It was not the result he was going for. Yeah. But like so bleak, right? And like, I mean, I think people can get whatever they want done and there's like full autonomy to do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. But like my hope is that watching this movie is a very specific, and I think it's actually kind of interesting that it's in conversation with like, for me, Martha Stewart last week, and about this idea of perfection. Mm-hmm. Like you can chase perfection, but perfection is unattainable. It is fleeting. It is not forever. And it is almost impossible. And like this way that she's sort of like trying to, and all of the people who use the substance are ultimately kind of extremely regretful. And yet at the same time, none of them are going to say, no, I want to stop, really, and like really mean it, really.
Okay, what I was thinking about was how there was a couple of years ago, Linda Evangelista, who came forward and said that procedure she had did not work. Remember that?
Yeah, because she was doing cool sculpting because the worst thing in the world is you could be fat. And I mean, we're saying this in a time of Ozempic too, right? So like I've got a lot of feelings around this kind of idea that the most monstrous thing in the world you could be is fat. I'm thrilled that they made like literal, like just a bunch of different limbs. Oh my God, sorry, I didn't want to distract from your Linda Evangelista.
No, I just meant that's what I was thinking
just the
about.
idea that she was like, oh, I can't show my face anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
that you feel that way.
Yeah.
But the reality is you can show your face in public because you are still a very conventionally attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I get sort of like, I would need 6 years of a master's thesis to sort of untangle all of it. But like, just like the idea that like she's out here saying that she was monstrous because of her failure of cool sculpting. Like, okay, cool sculpting shouldn't have failed you. I accept that. You are not monstrous because you had an extra 10 pounds somewhere
Yeah. No.
that
yeah.
you wanted to try and remove from your body. I'm sorry. I just will not accept that narrative. It's
No,
very,
but
but that's why this movie, I think, like extra meant a lot to me, is that it's fascinating to what, and people don't even react to the fact that she's a monster. They're just like, until she starts spurting blood on them.
Yeah.
And shows the one saggy boob. And like, my God, when Demi Moore's face is covered by the gown and then it rips free, you guys, I just could not stop screaming. It was, but like screaming in both delight and like madness that this is on our screens in 2024. I did not know that this year had a lot to give us to celebrate, but this is something.
Yeah. I still think, I do think this is probably one of those films where over the years, it'll be really interesting to see how it does kind of stay in our culture. Like, will it become one of those films that, you know, groups of women watch together and talk about after, or like in classes or something, you know, because it was a very triggering film in lots of ways, right? I think every woman watched this in a completely different way. You know, I was watching it with a friend, a guy, and he was asking, like, when the neighbor came over to her house across the hall. And he went, he looked and he went, oh, so like that dude thinks he has a chance? I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that is the whole point why she threw that in there.
Yeah.
Because that, in a weird way, is the person she did this for.
Sometimes I know some people who are just exceedingly beautiful by sort of societal norms. And
we're right here,
never,
okay? Just
and they've never had a man yell at them when they're crossing the street, like in a mean way. Like they've been catcalled, and that's gross too. No one's ever shouted out the window to them like, "Hurry the F up, you lump of whatever," you know? Like that would never happen to them because every single dude thinks he has a chance and is going to be nice. And this movie understands that so beautifully, so perfectly. And
that neighbor was a good piece of satire for sure.
So good.
Yeah. But I'm so interested. Like a lot of the reviews that you pulled out, AG, are like definitely from women who do not like this film, and it's fascinating to me because like I think that they all bring up stuff that like there's valid criticism and stuff, but like I just keep coming back to like this is Coralie Farjat's point. This whole these is not subtle because we do not live in subtle times.
No, there wasn't any. And all of these procedures that are being offered are gross. I mean, like, if you want to, if you need to take Ozempic for diabetes, I understand. But to ordinarily be taking a needle every day just because you want, you know, like it's harsh. All of these things, these chemical peels, these operations, people have died during these operations, right? I mean, they can't show their face for months sometimes because they're wrapped up in bandages. And yes, it needs to be gross.
It's all been normalized.
Yeah, it's all been
normalized.
But it's also, you know, like normalized for people to get Botox when they're very young,
Yeah.
like
For sure.
teenage age, so that they prevent themselves from ever starting to get lines on their face. And it's just like, it's a procedure that you have to do forever and ever and ever to keep it up.
Yeah.
Or else, I don't know.
And
it's true. Like this, all this stuff came up that we know and understand about women in society and how terrible it is. And like, we talk about it all the time on this podcast. But yeah, I don't know. There was something about this film that I was just like, the spectacle of it to me, like overtook me thinking about these ideas.
Yeah. And I think that that's fair. And also like the spectacle of it is is so ghoulish and over the top. And if like that, if gore and body horror are not your thing, that's going to be like, that's going to really put you like in a position to just feel so much more distance from the film, you know, like if I'm trying not to throw up, I'm having a hard time thinking about the film in other contexts. When her teeth start to fall out and she sees Harvey and he's like, smile, pretty girls are always pretty when they, you know, and like just, I mean, all three of us have definitely been told to smile by a man. I'm sorry. Like there's no way that we haven't had some version of that before. And watching Margaret Qualley smile while trying to hold in a mouthful of blood and loose teeth is honestly, like, we haven't talked a lot about Margaret Qualley, but I think she does a great job.
She was fantastic.
Here. Like,
so good.
I mean, Demi Moore, obviously, I want Demi Moore to be in the conversation for Best Actress. Like, I think she is doing some extremely sort of ferocious work. But I think Margaret Qualley is quite good as well.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Especially toward the end when everything's crumbling. Boy, oh boy. But that last scene, the big monster kind of just doing her hair and makeup, putting the earrings in. Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I was screaming, I was laughing, and I was like kind of tearing up. I was like, this is so poignant and so absurd and so like amazing. I can't believe I'm watching this. Like this is more than I had ever hoped for. And just like to go back for a second to like tying it into sort of like the Ozempic of it all and like the surgery of it all and stuff. Like, you know, people are choosing to take Ozempic for weight loss because they're being told that being fat is extremely bad and like, and not from like just a medical standpoint, but that like if you're fat, like it's morally bad too. And so people are like taking this drug for weight loss, but they're also doing it because society has put them in this position where they are being told all the time that they have to be thin. And that's like thin is the only good way to be. And like, I think I see this throughout this movie of just like this really vicious cycle of like, even at the end where she is about to like kill Sue and then she tries to take it back and instead brings her back to life. And then they go on this journey of monstrosity is only like the only way I can think to describe it is just like it all makes sense to me on every level. And it felt, again, even if it doesn't feel subtle, I like the sort of maximized sort of nature of it all. I want this kind of thing to be screamed in my face because it makes me feel like I'm less crazy and alone.
I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely hurts.
Well, I'm glad that you two got so much out of this movie because I did not really feel anything when I watched it.
Okay.
I was just kind of disgusted and yeah.
I am sorry that you had to be like disgusted because like I think this is a really, for sure, like it's definitely one of the wildest things I've ever witnessed on screen because I don't watch a lot of this kind of body horror. But I mean, I hope at the very least you just like that just like fountain of blood drenching the audience and watching different people sort of be soaked.
I'm not sure I even watched that part.
Oh, okay. Because it's great.
End.
It's
It's
really great.
I
Like
may not have watched that part.
Okay. It's honestly that like, part is very fun.
Towards like lots of it, I turned away and did not watch it because it was too much. And I felt like I got the point early on in the movie.
But that's the whole thing. That's also what I think the film is saying is that we haven't got the point. And that's why.
Yeah. But I don't feel like my understanding of like how poorly women are treated by society in terms of like beauty standards you have to live up to was expanded by continuously watching all of this gore and horror in this movie. Like I understood the point, and at the end of the movie, I still understand the same point.
Yeah, I think for you, if you're not like watching the actual things, each scene that they show us is sort of like a visual cherry on top of the sundae that they've already sort of, and but I get that it's not for you, but it's like it does enrich your experience of the film if you like confront it head on.
I think what really made me feel differently about it was just the whole theme of this is something you do to yourself. Like this stuff goes on because we keep doing it to ourselves. We keep going along with all of this. And when do we stop?
Yeah. And according to this,
maybe never.
Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
So
looks like never.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to look forward to.
Yep. Can't wait to, oh my God, the remake of this in 10 years. Anyway, for me, The Substance pops big time.
Yeah, me too. Very big. Yep. Big.
Well, I mean, it's obvious from this conversation that I did not get as much of it out of it, but I can understand that why you would love it. But I think if you're squeamish about horror in any way and body horror, it's not the movie for you.
Yeah.
Because it is quite over the
vivid.
top.
It's very vivid.
We love to also end our episodes on something else we recommend. AG, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'm going to recommend some music this week. A folk singer named Abigail Lapel from Toronto. She has an album out called Anniversary. And it's a very beautiful album. It's she calls it a collection of love songs, but they're not all like sentimental love songs. They're kind of like, some of them are spooky love songs or like about ghosts and stuff like that. And so it's just like a perfect kind of dark winter's night kind of thing to listen to.
Nice. Thank you. And people can probably find it on like Bandcamp and iTunes and Spotify, etc.
All the services. Yeah.
Lisa?
So when I was having my sad after this film, I was just like so devastated. I went and searched and watched Hope Floats with Sandra Bullock, Gina Rowlands, and Harry Connick Jr.
Wow.
And there's a connection though. They're like, she's the fading beauty queen. Like her life didn't turn out the way she thought it would. And now she's having to find some inner resources. That said, she still looks like Sandra Bullock while she's doing it. So, but it's funny because I couldn't remember the name of the movie for some reason. So I start typing in Hope, and then all of a sudden this other film comes up and it's called Hope Springs. And I don't know, it's with Colin Farrell. Not Colin Farrell. The other Colin.
Colin Firth?
Colin Firth. And he's some artist, and I'm watching, and I'm going, where does Sandra Bullock show up in this? And then she does not, because Hope Springs is different than Hope Floats.
Wow.
Two entirely different 90s movies.
Did you watch Hope Springs all the way through too?
I did not. No.
Okay.
Everyone was doing bad Southern accents, which also they're doing, or no, Maine accents, and they're doing a lot of stuff. Anyway, if you're looking for some Hope movies, there's lots of them out there, it seems. So,
but you're only recommending Hope Floats.
I'm only recommending
Hope
Springs. Floats. Yes.
I am going to recommend a local clothing designer whose clothes I love quite a lot. This is not an ad. I just love them so much. Everyone should check out ConnollyGoods.com. Connolly McDougall is the designer and co-founder. They're just like super great. Their whole thing is a commitment to, I'm going to quote from this website that they were given a BC Achievement Community Award this year, with a commitment to dismantling systemic oppressions, including fat phobia, sexism, and ableism. Connolly infuses each design with a powerful message of inclusion and empowerment. And they do a lot of gender inclusive clothing. They've got all kinds of stuff. I bought a few of their tops over the summer, and then I went and tried on some stuff in their little home studio last week, and it was really, really fun. And I love their clothes. ConnollyGoods.com.
All right.
They're local in Vancouver.
Yay.
And they have all sizes. So like everything from like 6X to extra small.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you for hanging out with us. You could hang out with us on our various social media channels. You could rate and review us 5 stars. You could email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. And
well, thank you, Andrea Gin, for watching that this this movie this week.
Sorry we tortured you.
As our co-host and producer, you take on a lot. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. So thank you.
I hope that is our final horror of this year.
Well, we got Love Actually versus The Holiday coming up. So
Different depends how you feel.
kind of horror, but
True.
We'll get through it.
yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.